When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. Some people don't like change, but you need to embrace change if the alternative is disaster. I think it's very important to have a feedback loop, where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you could be doing it better. The factory is the machine that builds the machine. A company is a group organized to create a product or service, and it is only as good as its people and how excited they are about creating. I do want to recognize a ton of super talented people. I just happen to be the face of the companies. The problem is that at a lot of big companies, process becomes a substitute for thinking. You're encouraged to behave like a little gear in a complex machine. Frankly, it allows you to keep people who aren't that smart, who aren't that creative. If you're entering anything where there's an existing marketplace, against large, entrenched competitors, then your product or service needs to be much better than theirs. It can't be a little bit better, because then you put yourself in the shoes of. The path to the CEO's office should not be through the CFO's office, and it should not be through the marketing department. It needs to be through engineering and design. The value of beauty and inspiration is very much underrated, no question. But I want to be clear, I'm not trying to be anyone's savior. I'm just trying to think about the future and not be sad. Tesla is here to stay and keep fighting for the electric car revolution. I'm interested in things that change the world or that affect the future and wondrous, new technology where you see it, and you're like, wow, how did that even happen? How is that possible? I think we are at the dawn of a new era in commercial space exploration. I do love email. Wherever possible, I try to communicate asynchronously. I'm really good at email. When Henry Ford made cheap, reliable cars, people said, "Nah, what's wrong with a horse?" That was a huge bet he made, and it worked. If I'm not in love, if I'm not with a long-term companion, I cannot be happy. There's a silly notion that failure's not an option at NASA. Failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough. If you go back a few hundred years, what we take for granted today would seem like magic. Being able to talk to people over long distances, to transmit images, flying, accessing vast amounts of data like an oracle. These are all things that would When I was a child, there's one thing I said, I never want to be alone. That's what I would say. I don't want to be alone. We can't have, like, willy-nilly proliferation of fake news. That's crazy. You can't have more types of fake news than real news. That's allowing public deception to go unchecked. If humanity doesn't land on Mars in my lifetime, I would be very disappointed. I say something, and then it usually happens. Maybe not on schedule, but it usually happens. The reality is gas prices should be much more expensive than they are because we're not incorporating the true damage to the environment and the hidden costs of mining oil and transporting it to the US whenever you have an unpriced externality. If we drive down the cost of transportation in space, we can do great things. I don't create companies for the sake of creating companies. but to get things done. Share. It's very important to like the people you work with. Otherwise, your job is going to be quite miserable. There have to be reasons that you get up in the morning and you want to live. Why do you want to live? What's the point? What inspires you? What do you love about the future? If the future does not include being out there among the stars and being a